This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. And that smiling person over there is just glowing. You know, Superstar T got it popping off today on a good Thursday, on a thirsty Thursday. We are out here and thirsty because it's hot in the city. What, 93, 94 today, 95 degrees today. So, yeah, it's going to be some good hot weather. We got some good hot topics for you going today. You know, the Arthur Smith is speaking. He's giving us some thoughts, so we're going to respond to that as far as the direction of the Atlanta Falcons, and I think they're headed in a good one. Also, Nick Saban is running off at his little lumberyard. We're going to respond to that. Does he have a God complex? We'll discuss. And for the culture, man, what's going on with these prices? Inflation is real. But before we did that, I want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And guess what? I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. Leave us a 5-star review. If you don't, I might have to drug test you. Leave it at that. All right. T. Arthur Smith spoke with Jeff Schultz of The Athletic. In the article, and you're talking about how, a lot of people times, sports fans want to get into the whole tanking for CJ Stroud or, Bryce, my main man down there in Alabama, those guys, those type of quarterbacks, right? Because they feel like those guys can be face of the franchise. Right. And I think that it was kind of fitting of Arthur Smith to kind of just shut that down immediately. And because when you actually think about it, T, it's kind of actually dumb to ask a professional organization to tank, right? Because it just doesn't make any sense. It goes against every being of what a competitor is, and I think Arthur Smith is the epitome of that. And I think he's moving forward without getting into the whole tanking piece. And I think that is something that he is not interested in at all.
Right, and we saw that with how the Falcons battled the entire 2021 season. And that was a season where I would say arguably, we know it's just paper now, but arguably that was a roster of lesser caliber and talent than the roster that he has this year. And yet he squeezed all the juice out of that lemon and made lemonade to the tune of 7 wins. That was impressive. That was impressive, all things considered. But it also showed you the competitive nature and spirit that he operates in. And also Terry Fontenot, because they came right back and they started making the best moves that they could this offseason. And then they started getting pieces in the draft. And then I think about it from a competitor's perspective, just the individual who's taking the field. Now, even if you, from the top down, like there are allegations that have been made that leadership, brass for the Browns, brass for the Dolphins, asked for tanking to go on. Right. But I just cannot see Arthur Blank sending an edict down as well, because he's got that competitive fire too.
No doubt.
Him sending an edict down saying, hey, by the way, play that guy who's who's barely on the depth chart, go ahead and start him today. And then start him like 4, 5, 6 more games so we can get XYZ positioning. I rather see them as, hey, if they decide that their guy isn't there, which last year their guy was there, seemingly this year their guy was there, but I see them as being the team who would just be adept at franchise, will be adept at negotiating to get who they want. And then finally, how do you trickle that down? So let's just say Arthur Smith actually said that, which we don't believe that he did. Let's just say Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith bought into that and somehow played the 3rd or 4th string player. Even that guy is not going to get on the field and just lay an egg on purpose. Now, he might do it by default, but a competitor is a competitor at the highest level a professional can get. So there are some leagues, basketball, where it's a little bit easier to do, and it's been going to be done. Somewhat baseball, but football is just a different animal. I just don't think it's logical. And I like the fact that Arthur Smith said, no, we're not even going to have that conversation. We are going to compete.
You know what? And there's a thing called guaranteed contracts that don't exist. Fully guaranteed contracts don't exist in the NFL, so there may be a reason why you're not going to convince a player to go out there and say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to kind of have behind it and we're going to lose games. No, you can't. There's no way you can get guys on board for that. And I think that, whether you agree with it or not, you still saw how much of a competitor Arthur Blank was when he essentially sent that edict down to say, hey, go after Deshaun. He was my ball boy, Mm-hmm. Hey, we don't have to worry about those 22 civil cases that are pending right now. Yeah, let's go see if we can get that done. So, and I think that, and I think that's the piece that forced them into the trading of Matt Ryan. Mm-hmm. and I think that and Arthur Smith talked about in an article that was part of the plan. To trade Matt, because you just couldn't keep kicking the can down the road with restructuring his contract. We all knew that was an issue. That was a issue that Thomas Dimitroff and family dealt with. Mm-hmm. And you kind of understood it because, essentially, if you looked at, the way the roster was constructed, the weapons they had put around Matt, they're going to try to go out and compete. It made all the sense in the world. But I think right now, if just looking at from the outside looking in and following this and covering this team really closely, it looks like the plan is starting to actually come together. Yeah. Because like I said, they're going to have about $100 million worth of cap space next year. They solidified one guy on defense and one guy on offense and saying, you know what? We're going to work around these guys. And I'm talking about Grady Jarrett and Jake Matthews. Those are guys who are up front and know that you can build a team around, and those are good guys in the locker room to have those young guys to look up to. Mm-hmm. So I think the foundation is what they're trying to build, and that's the thing that's the beauty of it for me, is that they are building the foundation. They're getting weapons for their face of the franchise, whether that's Desmond Ridder or whether that's whoever they get next year. If they don't feel Desmond Ridder is that guy, I think they're building the foundation, and I think that the Arthur Smith is executing a plan that may or may not have been well thought out, but it's starting to work.
Right. And you have further evidence, I was going to say, with Desmond Ridder, that it is not about tanking. If it was just about tanking or just accepting the status quo, then you just go with Marcus Mariota. You just ride that train and just kind of see how it goes. But They went out and got themselves a viable, arguably a quarterback who could have gone in the second round. Some said even late first round, but somehow you got him in the third. And that's a very viable quarterback. That's a quarterback that we're looking at saying, nobody would be shocked if he starts week one, but certainly everybody believes he's going to start at some point this season, or most people do. And so that, again, to me, was another cosign. And going after the pass rusher, trading up in the draft to go get yourself AK, that's another example. And going then to get more help in Anderson, if you will. So I just think everything that they're pointing to is saying, no, we have no interest in tanking. We're not about that life in Flowery Branch. We're about competing at the highest level that we can, based on the product that we put on the field and based on the way it's that product is prepared from the sidelines.
Here we are competing on ATL Day Ones. We're competing for your views, your likes, your subscriptions, and we don't want you to go anywhere, because guess what? We are talking about Nick Saban coming up next. He just been running his mouth. Why is he running his mouth? Don't you know Jimbo Fisher used to coach with him? He got, all the skeletons are buried, baby. Come on, Nicky. Man, you about to get yourself in some real trouble. We'll talk about all that next on ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta.